Coming up on No Pulp, a crazy week in women's college basketball and another #1 team falls.
Plus, on the men's side, we'll break down who we think's in, who's out, how many teams will get in from each conference when March Madness Selection Sunday rolls around.
We've selected Andrew to finally get back in the juicer, where he takes on a new foe. Find out who it is as we get rolling on another No Pulp.
Kansas State has been on fire this year.
Missouri is one of the most fraudulent teams in college basketball.
And it was
They're not going to fire him. He's the best player in program history.
Side to Lawrence for the win. Yes, he got it.
She is the Shohei Ohtani of college softball. This is a team that's potentially going to be a top 10 team in the country.
How you feeling?
I'm excited to win the juicer.
LSU has captured its very first national championship.
We'll be talking about LSU a little later, but we got to start somewhere else first. Welcome into No Pulp, Ian Nicholas, alongside Andrew Selover. Andrew, we got to start in Raleigh.
Have to.
Where NC State, I know you were catching this game at the very end, took down #1 Notre Dame women's basketball, 104-95 in double overtime. #1 for the first time in 6 years, and the Fighting Irish, well, they now dropped to #2, albeit NC State, they deserved that win.
Certainly did. They played one of their best games of the season, and this was a great matchup, a rematch of last year's ACC championship. Wouldn't be surprised to see these two in the finals again this year in Greensboro. NC State, people forget, that's a Final Four team from a season ago. Both the men and the women went to the Final Four last year. They still have a lot of the talent that they had from last season. This is an NC State team that really is one of the few teams in the country that can match up guard-wise with Notre Dame. Zoe Brooks, Isaiah James, and Sanaya Rivers. Those three go against the three-headed monster in Notre Dame's guard, Sonia Citron, Hannah Hidalgo, Olivia Miles. This is one of maybe 2 or 3 teams in the country, in my opinion, that can really stack up defensively on the guard side against Notre Dame.
I mean, look, you and I had a chance to watch a Notre Dame game earlier this season. When the Fighting Irish take over, it is night-night for any other team. The way that Olivia Miles pushes the pace, finds the shooters, engineers everything. But if there's any team in the country that, if you said, matches up the best, it is Wes Moore's team. In this year, NC State had a sneaky run to the Final Four last year. This year, it feels like the Wolfpack have enough juice and there's enough parity in women's college basketball where they could get themselves back into the Final Four mix.
Frankly, once that Sonia Citron 3 at the buzzer at the end of regulation went in, I thought for sure Notre Dame capitalizes on that momentum and goes on to win. But what a night it was for Zoe Brooks. She was great, 33 points. NC State as a team, phenomenal closing the game out at the free throw line. And people forget, this is the first loss in the United States for this Notre Dame team. The previous two, Cayman Islands during the Thanksgiving week.
Yeah, first loss in 2 months for Notre Dame. It almost feels like Niele Ivey could use this as fuel because definitely some learning lessons, especially for Hannah Hidalgo. 26 points on 26 shots. She needs to be at her best because there are a couple teams in the ACC that now are right on the Irish's tail for #1.
Yeah, this game makes it real interesting for that 1 seed. I think it's frankly a battle between those top two teams, Notre Dame, NC State. You just got 2 games left. Notre Dame has the tougher final 2. They still have to play Florida State. Meanwhile, NC State just has 2 easier ones. They've got SMU still on the schedule, who you don't even see there because they're in the bottom 3. So if NC State wins both, Notre Dame loses one, NC State can claim that 1 seed because they've got the tiebreaker on the Fighting Irish.
And by the way, don't forget about North Carolina. Only team in the country that hasn't lost a game on the road this year. Just beat Louisville, too.
Yeah, that's the best conference, in my opinion, in all of women's college basketball. The other one that maybe has a shot at that is the SEC. And the big matchup in the SEC on the women's side this week, LSU and Kentucky, a top 15 showdown. And it was all Wildcats in the first half, and then it was all Tigers in the second half. Specifically that third quarter, massive for LSU and Kim Mulkey to get back in this game.
Yeah, first of all, shout out to Mulkey, the ultimate winner in the sport. Win number 750 for her in her storied career. But like you said, the definition of a cliche, a tale of 2 halves. A 16-point lead for Kenny Brooks, Georgia Amore and company in the first half. And then in that third quarter, only 6 points for the Wildcats, and they get outscored by 17. Regardless, though, it was still a great fourth quarter, a lot of back and forth. And I know you said the ACC is the best conference in women's college basketball, but the SEC, especially after a game like this, would also like a word, and that fourth quarter proved why.
Yeah, you toss Texas, South Carolina, teams like that in it, and you really realize the depth nowadays of this SEC. I like what Kenny Brooks has done coming over from Virginia Tech, but frankly, his team has cost themselves a couple games with second-half meltdowns. They completely fell apart in that third quarter. Georgia Amore needs to be better if they want to win big games. She was just 3 of 15 from 3 in this game. And so you've got to have your star in Georgia Amore shining bright. You also need Clara Strack to not be in foul trouble. I thought that tremendously impacted this game because she had to exit early in that third quarter.
So we know that Kentucky's ceiling is a little limited because, Amore's a chucker, right? She doesn't have Liz Kitley anymore.
Right.
We're not in Blacksburg anymore. And when she isn't firing on all cylinders, this is a good but not great Kentucky team. But what is LSU's ceiling in an SEC where, Texas is the new number 1 and they have lost to the Longhorns?
Yeah, it's another year with a whole lot of parity in women's college basketball. Already 4 different teams that have been number 1. I'm just not sure LSU can go toe-to-toe with the best of the best and make the Final Four this season. I don't think they have the scoring necessarily from top to bottom on their roster. They really rely heavily on the 2 players you see there in Williams and Flau'jae Johnson. So I don't know that LSU can compete at the top of the top. I think they're a second weekend of the tournament team. I don't think they're a Final Four team this year.
I did think it was nice, though, that Flau'jae Johnson, who was the team's leading scorer headed into the game, only had 13, and Michaela Williams did her thing. She's a walking double-double. She's one of the best players in the country.
Yeah, she's the big reason why they got back in the game in that third quarter. She scored most of her points in the second half, but I still just don't think you can rely on those 2 players. We just talked about a Notre Dame team who has 3 of the best guards in the country. How can LSU go up against a team like that? I'm not sure they can this year.
Fair, but remember, as we started that little segment, you got Kim Mulkey on that sideline.
It's true.
I don't want to bet against her. From the women's game to the men's game, want to talk about great coaches. Kelvin Sampson and Houston taking care of business at home against Iowa State, who, Andrew, was undermanned without its top 2 players. Houston wins by just under 10 points. Nearly blew a big lead. Iowa State gave the Cougars everything that they have, but it's not enough.
Yeah, real scrappy effort from this Iowa State Cyclones team because you mentioned it. They're without their 2 best scorers. That puts a little asterisk, in my opinion, next to this result.
Yeah.
When you get back in the game, got it to a 1-point game in that second half, but you're missing Curtis Jones, you're missing Keyshawn Gilbert. I don't know how you could expect to go on the road against the top 5 Houston team and win, and still they almost got it done. I actually think this is a positive if you're Iowa State, if you're a fan in Ames,
100%.
Iowa, because of what this team showed, the fight that they showed to get back in this game. I think TJ Otzelberger has a great team this year. He was missing 2 senior guards. I think those are 2 senior guards that can get you big wins when they come back in March. I think this is 2 of the best teams. I would probably say the 2 best teams in the Big 12 right here.
And the big reason why Houston has stayed at where they're at, ready to take another Big 12 title in just their second year in the conference, going back to the Cougar side of things, LJ Cryer has really taken that step up this season.
He's fantastic, but it all starts defensively, as it always does for those Houston teams. And again, they hold another conference opponent below 60 points. You can expect a lot of that in March. Defense wins in March. Remember that. Teams don't shoot their best and they go home, but instead it's the Rick Pitino's and it's Houston's of the world that'll get wins in March, and I expect another deep run from this Cougars team.
Well, when they can shoot, we could talk about Rick Pitino for days, the job he's done at St. John's this year, but Houston did make over 50% of its threes in this game. But Andrew, I will say, I never trust Houston in March because it always feels like that offense just doesn't have enough when it comes to past the Sweet 16.
Sure, they might not be reliable to go win the whole thing, but they're reliable to get you a couple rounds, and they're usually not upset prone in that first round because of how good the defense is.
But isn't that, you want to talk about asterisks. I know Kelvin Sampson's one of the best coaches of this generation, and he's done it at multiple different stops, but don't you feel like it's kind of getting to the point where he needs to deliver it all?
How much better can you do at Houston, Ian?
Well, you're the guy who told me last night that you never considered them a mid-major team, even when they weren't playing in the Big 12.
Correct.
So if you've
because
considered
he has them in the second round of the tournament, second weekend of the tournament every year. How much better could any other coach do at Houston?
Houston is now transcended the little brother thing.
All right, get out of here with the whole they should expect better than to go to the Sweet 16 every season.
No, they're in the Big 12 now. Time to win the whole thing.
That's enough. They're not going to win the whole thing.
Sorry, I'm
year,
crazy.
But that's what it is. All right, let's move on. Last big game of the week. It comes in the SEC. Everybody's favorite conference this year is the SEC, and the big one this weekend, Tennessee and A&M, and it was a shooting affair for the Volunteers who get the job done. Chaz Lanier, fantastic in this game on the road, and Tennessee wins it by 8.
Yeah, I mean, look, when you got a point guard that can get you the ball like Zakai Ziegler, makes things a lot easier. But yeah, Lanier, I mean, what a turnaround. Not necessarily a turnaround, but remember just a couple months ago, Rick Barnes threw a shot right Lanier's way, who transferred to Tennessee this year, and he said, I'm paying you to hit your shots. If you're not hitting your shots, I'm putting you on the bench. Lanier's not going to be on the bench much longer. No. 30 points, 8 triples, well over 50% shooting on the game. He is the best shooter in college basketball, and when the Vols have that shooting, it opens up everything.
Yeah, if you want to see what Chaz Lanier can really do, go watch the film when Tennessee dismantled Baylor during Thanksgiving week. He made 6 threes in the first 6 minutes of the game. He made 6 threes in the first 6 minutes of the game. This guy has been a phenomenal transfer portal get from Rick Barnes. When we talk about teams that are winning and losing in the portal, Tennessee won because they went to North Florida and they found the best shooter. Just like 2 years ago, how they got Dalton Connect. Those are 2 of the biggest hits, the biggest check marks in the portal that we've seen in the last 5 years. And so a shout out to Rick Barnes. He knew what he was doing with that. You're getting paid, so do what you're getting paid to do comment. Chaz Lanier's been fantastic all year long. One bad night, Rick Barnes lights a fire under him, and he comes back better than ever.
Look, we are in the NIL era, and that's one of the first times that we've really seen, and Rick Barnes has more respect than any coach in the collegiate game, but that's really the first time we've seen a coach go that far. It worked out. Flipping it to the Texas A&M side of things, your boy Wade Taylor, 0 for 9 for 3, 2 straight losses for the Aggies. You gotta be a little concerned, right? I mean, I know it's a loaded conference. You're gonna take your lumps, but they're not playing their best ball right now.
Yeah, I'm not confident in Texas A&M to do much in the tournament. I mean, all these SEC teams at the top are good enough, right? I mean, you look top to bottom, you're going to get double-digit teams into the tournament if you're the SEC. Some might argue that the SEC tournament is going to be tougher to win than the NCAA tournament because of that depth that you see there. I just don't know if Texas A&M can get it done if they have shooting nights like that. Wade Taylor's got to do better. I know he can assist the guys, but you got to make some shots if you want to win ball games, and right now Texas A&M isn't doing that. 4
teams in the top 6. You want to talk about the NIL era? It has not helped out a single conference more in college basketball than the SEC. We're going to talk about March Madness and the SEC later in the show, but when we come back, Andrew, you face a new opponent, Jake Klein and the Juicer. Are you winning?
Probably.
All right, Jake, get ready to roll. We'll be back on the other side. Welcome back to No Pulp. Welcome to the Juicer. Welcome, Jake Klein.
Hi, Jake.
First time, how are we feeling, Jake?
I'm excited to win the Juicer.
As his good buddy Andrew said
original,
2 years ago. Andrew, you do feel confident. It's been a while since you've been here.
I know. They kind of barred me from the Juicer after you rigged one against Sam Reese, and I haven't been in it since then. So we'll see. I'll try to knock the rust off here
Reese
tonight.
is a feisty guy.
Yeah.
You know the deal. 3 questions. First is worth a point. Second worth 2. Third worth 3. If we're tied after those 3, we got a bonus question. Andrew, we'll start with you. We'll keep it with... no, we won't keep it with basketball. Why would we? We're going to flip the script. Lacrosse, because we're almost in March, if you could believe it. Best scorer in all of college lacrosse, men's or women's?
I'll go to the women's side. I'm going to go to Boston College, and I'm going to go to Rachel Clark on this one. She's averaging 5 goals per game right now for Boston College. And when you think about it, 5 goals per game, that's pretty good. That's near the top of NCAA. But you remember who she's surrounded by. You got All-Americans left and right. And so to be putting up 5 goals per game when you've got so many dynamic scorers on the field at one time, that means you've got to be really impressive. And what impresses me most about Rachel Clark's game, she scores on over 50% of the shots she takes. I'll repeat that. Scoring on 50% of the shots she takes. She scored 78 goals last year. She's at 25 already this year through 5 games. And she had 2 75-point seasons at Virginia before that. She's unbelievable.
You said it right there. She's surrounded by All-Americans. And when you're surrounded by 6 other All-Americans on this Boston College roster, makes it awfully easy to score when those others
it actually
are
makes
commanding
it hard.
the attention of the defense.
You gotta spread the wealth.
CJ Kirst at Cornell does it all by himself. And boy, he has been phenomenal. Leads the nation on the men's side, 5.5 goals a game, and he does it with 0 All-Americans on his team. He has single-handedly carried Cornell back to prominence after a national championship appearance 2 years ago. They're back in the national conversation. The guy does it all alone, no help, and he does it from anywhere.
I don't understand what we're missing here. When you have All-Americans around you, it is objectively tougher to score that many goals because you have so many players that want to
CJ
shoot the
Kirst
ball.
draws the best pole every single day, and it does not matter.
He has nobody to pass it to, so he has to shoot it. And how many shots of those are going in? About like 28%.
Well, how many of CJ Kerr's shots are on cage? What was it I saw on the bottom of the screen?
6 for 6
94%?
against Denver.
That's insane. What'd you say, 50-something? Come on.
He is scoring on 30% of shots he takes.
CJ Kirst, another
Rachel
goal.
Clark scoring on
Death and
50%
taxes.
of shots.
He
I mean,
is going to win the
that's terrible.
Tewaaraton. It's too easy in Chestnut Hill. Shea Dolce is the best player on that team. Jake, we're going to go back to the hardwood here as you've taken the early 1-0 lead as the underdog. Mid-major poised to make a run.
It's Drake. I think the common answer, the regular man's answer, would probably be St. Mary's because of the dominant regular season they've had in the WCC. But for Drake, a team that lost its coach to West Virginia a season ago, look, Cinderellas in March are built on a player who can take over the game. And Drake has one out of the transfer portal in Bennett Sturts. He averages 20 a game. He scored 22 on Kansas State, 21 on Miami, 25 on Florida Atlantic, 16 on a tournament-bound Vanderbilt team. And by the way, his team won all of those games against power conference opponents. Drake has the pedigree to do it. They've proven that, unlike other mid-majors.
Well, Jake, unfortunately, they don't have any of the pieces left from teams that have done that before. In fact, their coach coached at D2 before he came over, so he's never coached in the NCAA tournament.
He's coached in the NCAA tournament many times.
I'm going to go with St. Mary's as the answer here.
There it is.
They're the best mid-major, and I'll tell you why. This is a St. Mary's team that yet again has beaten Gonzaga twice this year, and that is the standard for St. Mary's if they're going to have a great season. Boy, have they been good. They've only lost 4 times this season. They returned key players from last year's NCAA tournament appearance, and while yes, they were upset by Grand Canyon, you've got players like Augustus Marciulionis and Mitchell Saxon back this year. They have played Augustus Marciulionis. He can knock down threes like that. And Not only can he knock down the three, he experienced what it was like to lose, the pain of upset in that first round a season ago. These guys have tournament experience, and they're going to flex it in March. They're like Virginia. You get upset one year, you're going to make a deep run.
There's no way.
I don't care if you have Augustus Gloop on your team. There's no 15-point-per-game score on St. Mary's. By the way, this is the same guy who picked St. Mary's to go to the Final Four last year.
Andrew, can you name one other team they've beaten outside of Gonzaga of note?
They have beaten San Francisco, Washington State, Boise State.
And the Central New York Boys and Girls Club.
Hey, that's why Jake is ahead 3-0
I
early
answered your
in the
questions.
juicer.
Oh my gosh.
No, man, that coach for Drake
ridiculous.
is a winner.
You don't even know who it is.
I saw a tweet about him earlier today. Bad hairline.
We've lost the
Great
integrity
coach.
of the show again with this guy.
Andrew, you still got a chance to come back here. So here's your chance, man. Who's the most valuable player in college basketball, men's or women's?
It's Juju Watkins, and I'll tell you why. She plays for USC, who's a top 5 team in the country. This is a Final Four contender in the Trojans. And when you look at what Juju Watkins has done in her 2 seasons with USC, she's about to lead them to her second NCAA tournament appearance. In the 17 years prior, USC had been to 2 NCAA tournaments. That speaks to what Juju Watkins does. Frankly, she's valuable, and without her, USC would probably not be in the tournament. She's been the leading scorer for the Trojans in 22 of their 27 games this season. They are nobody without Juju Watkins. She's the best player in women's college basketball in my eyes, and boy, does USC need her.
I think we're overlooking something we've overlooked all year, and that is that we are witnessing in men's college basketball right now a generational player in Cooper Flagg. This guy is the best one and done since Anthony Davis at Kentucky. He's phenomenal. 20 points a game, but where he really becomes his team's most valuable player is on the defensive end. He's going to become the first freshman in a decade, top 3 in the nation in steal rate and in block rate. And that, not his offensive talent, is the reason why Cooper Flagg is going to carry Duke to a national title in 2025. Yes, he's great offensively. We all know it. We've all seen it. ACC freshman record for points in a game, leading the conference at times during the season.
I'll tell you
but
where
what
he's
makes
not
the
valuable.
difference, defense for Cooper
I'll
Flagg.
tell you where he's not valuable. When they give him the ball in the last seconds to go try and win the game, and then he'll slip over and fall and Duke will lose. That's where he's not valuable.
I agree with everything you said. But USC would be goop, to bring back a made-up word we've already talked about, without Juju. That Duke team is loaded. We're going to the bonus. Andrew is staging a comeback, but Jake, you still have a chance to win it. The most disappointing team, as we go back to the field, the most disappointing team to start the lacrosse season.
Look, it's the team right up the road, Syracuse. This is a team that came in not with national title hopes, but with national title expectations. That was the word, expectations. They had to do it, and they've stumbled out of the gates. 2 bad losses. Maryland, ugly game. Harvard, gotta win that.
So I'll tell you what, Jake, it sure has been disappointing for Syracuse, but I think if you ask college lacrosse fans, does Syracuse still have a chance? They'd probably say yes. If you ask fans about Virginia, they'd say the season's already over for the preseason number 6 team who went to championship weekend, unlike Syracuse a season ago. They not only lost to Richmond by 3. It was more disappointing the way they lost to Ohio State by 9 this weekend. Won the face-off battle 14-6, and they lost by 9.
Let me ask you this before you give me the win. How can you be a disappointment if you weren't expected to be
You were
great?
preseason number 6.
Guys, both teams have been, as Frank the Tank likes to say, feeble to start the season. But I don't see any coach stepping up to the podium saying, Virginia's back. The burn effect has deemed Syracuse still alive.
That's terrible.
Andrew, you won.
Oh, wow.
You are
Thank
really
you.
slower than you think.
Wow. Thanks.
Andrew
I'll take it.
wins the juicer as Virginia
pretty shocking.
and the creator extremely disappointed that the Who's have almost dropped out of the rankings. So after I tanked Andrew's chances early on last season, Selover on the board.
Wow. I really thought you were going the other way there with your explanation.
Because you knew it was the right call.
It was, look, they called Jake crazy for saying Harvard was going to win that game, but then Coach Byrne knew Syracuse is still here. Anyways, Jake, heck of a fight in your debut. Selover survives. When we come back to the hardwood. Joe Lenardi, look away.
Jason, let's go see your room.
What do you think? We kept it a little spare, so you can decorate it how you like.
Dinner! Go?
Excellent. Soccer is fun. Yeah, I saw you guys out there. We're the family.
Yeah!
Oh, I thought you were on my team.
Welcome to my house. Everybody's pretty tired of each other. The walls were closing in. Clearly a case of too much family, too close, 24/7. If this sounds like your house, try going someplace new. YourLifeYourVoice.org. You'll find lots of ideas to help you handle the family stresses of being confined to close quarters. YourLifeYourVoice.org. It could help you find a little more breathing room.
Welcome back to No Pulp, Juicer Winner, and the host, Ian Nicholas.
I mean, you didn't even know you'd won.
I know, that was pretty shocking because usually you don't let me win on this show. So
Well, had to make you fight for it at the end.
Yeah, I'll take the win where I can get it. Let's talk March Madness here. We hinted at it. Boy, it's going to be fun over the next couple weeks. Watch the regular season come to a close. Watch the conference championships take place. That SEC tournament is going to be much-watched television. And then we'll get to Selection Sunday, and we'll get to figure out who's going to be in the dance and who's not going to be in the dance. And we're going to try and preview that for you. And I want to start with the SEC.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm going to go.
Everyone's getting it.
I'm going to go pretty much. I mean, everybody's talking 12, 13 teams for the SEC. I'm going to say 11 teams get in for the Southeastern Conference.
That'd be a record.
It would tie a record, but it would still be a little underwhelming. Some teams like Georgia and Oklahoma are on the outside looking in for me. In my opinion, Arkansas has done enough lately. I think they'll have a late season charge to get themselves into the tournament. I think Vanderbilt's had a few too many key home upset wins that they can't be left out of the tournament. But I'll tell you a couple teams that think they're going to get in and won't, in my opinion. I think Texas is going to lose to Arkansas and Georgia down the stretch. They're probably on the inside looking out right now, but I think they'll miss it. I think Oklahoma will maybe make it if they get home wins over Missouri or Kentucky ranked teams. I think they'll lose both of those and miss out as well. And I think Georgia is one of the first few teams out of the tournament because I think they'll lose to Vanderbilt here down the stretch. I also think it'll be important to watch when we think about metrics. In the SEC, for these bubble teams, there's a lot of teams on the bubble from the SEC right now.
I mean, you seem pretty confident in Arkansas. They're pretty firmly on the bubble.
I do, but I think they're hot right now, so I think they'll get it going. I think Coach Cal's had them rolling here down the stretch. They've gotten a lot better as the season went on. But for these bubble teams, it's going to be a lot harder to make a run in the conference tournament to prove yourself because you're going to have to go up against such high competition as opposed to other conferences where you wouldn't. But still 11 for the SEC, that would tie a record.
Yeah, Andrew, and you know, this show is based out of Syracuse, the good old days. 2011 Big East getting 11 teams in. They don't build conferences like that anymore until this year. And it only took a crap ton of money. An egregious, embarrassing.
You want to put a price tag on the SEC this year?
$1 billion. That's actually my Dr. Evil impression, not my Andrew Selover impression. They're very similar. But there's another conference that can also potentially get double-digit teams in the tournament, and that's the Big Ten. And, well, Big Ten, they are going to get, drum roll please, 10 teams. Perfect timing. This is why we do television. They're doing 10 teams in the field. the one team that is not here that everyone's talking about is Indiana. But you know what? Mike Woodson can pull out whatever chair he wants. Bob Knight's not the coach there anymore.
That was a big win over Purdue.
It was a big win, but it's a down season for Purdue. They're good, not great this year. Michigan State and Michigan.
You know who's great?
That's been fun. Maryland, shout out associate producer Nick King. I know he's excited about that Terps team. They have been rolling. Nebraska is pretty firmly on the bubble, but I like Fred Hoiberg's team this season. They've got a big upcoming game with Michigan at home. I think the Cornhuskers win that one and really solidify their standings in the Big Ten. Oregon with a strong season too. UCLA, you and I were talking about this just last night. Everybody's making it out to be such a bad season for the Bruins, but they really have weathered a lot of storms that the media has thrown Mick Cronin. This is not the SEC, but still a great conference and a great year for the Big Ten.
Yeah, if you watch Twitter exclusively, you would think that UCLA is below 500 the way they portray Mick Cronin. Instead, they've got 20 wins. Ian, give me one or two of these teams that you think makes a Final Four run.
You know what, Tom Izzo, this team, the vibe, I think that's an easy one. And you know what? I love the group Oregon has this year. I know they've kind of flirted up and down the national rankings. Why not? I think the Ducks could be a lot of fun.
Wow. I say Maryland. I think it's Maryland's year. I think they make a deep run. I like you, though, on Michigan State. January, February.
Izzo. And it's about time that actually meant something again. I think this year it does.
Last year, an early exit. I think a deep run this year for Sparty. Let's go to the Big 12. In my opinion, this is the cleanest cut conference in terms of who's in and who's out, as we're a couple weeks away from Selection Sunday. Let's show 8 teams inside the bubble for the Big 12 this season. And frankly, there's only 2 teams, in my opinion, that could flip-flop here in terms of moving out or moving in. West Virginia is the one team that could maybe, from this group of 8, fall out. They've got a big game tomorrow against TCU. That's a team that, if they win out, could maybe sneak themselves in the back door right now. I thought Kansas State might have had a chance, and then they lost 3 in a row. So I think K-State's firmly outside of this bubble. So I'll go 8 teams in this Big 12. Only team that I see, maybe having an impact, as we said, is West Virginia. They could get a big win at BYU. TCU is going to be a big game for them. And then in terms of the 2 best teams, we already talked about them. I think Iowa State and Houston are the 2 teams in my eyes that can make deep runs. Kansas, how about this? Earlier today, falls outside of the top 25 for the first time in forever.
Really is a changing of the guard. I know I'm not making any crazy statement when I say that, but Kansas and Baylor used to run this show. Kansas was still running this show at the start of the year. They've had the talent.
They were the preseason number 1.
Right.
And they've fallen outside. Caleb Love should be a fun watch in March as well for Arizona. Came over from UNC.
Yeah, maybe he'll get to play against Caleb Love. That would be quite the sight. I mean, R.J. Davis.
I was going to say, we can't have Caleb Love on Caleb Love.
Look, it's late in the night. Let's go to a conference with a little bit more uncertainty, not as big an NCAA tournament field, but still a lot of fun. We've already referenced them in this segment. The Big East. They might not be getting 11 teams into the tournament this year, but the teams that they are getting in my mind, really good teams. The number for the Big East is 1, 2, 3, 4 teams. Again, our producing crew is elite. Let's show these teams. St. John's, obviously, top 10 team in the country. They're getting in, and even if they can't shoot the ball very well, shout out Kadari Richmond. Those guys are rolling. Marquette, I don't love Shaka Smart. I don't think, they're very Houston-y. Will they ever get past that kind of NCAA tournament hump? I don't know. Dwayne Wade's never walking in that door. Creighton, Kalkbrenner, come on. That's a guy that can always make noise in the tournament. And unfortunately, even though he's been very obnoxious this year, and his team has underperformed very much this year, UConn is getting in the tournament. I mean, I think the only notable exception here for me, Xavier?
Yeah, Xavier and Villanova maybe are the 2 teams that have a hope.
I did want to give a shout out to Villanova because, I know in the episode we talked about Joe Bresci, UNC lacrosse coach, his seat getting hot. Kyle Neptune's seat was blazing at the start of the year, and only, his second year replacing Jay Wright. They have righted the ship, but unfortunately, this is just not a conference where if you're, what are they, 9-8 in the league, that is nowhere close to where you need to be out of the Big East.
UConn is not going to be a fun team to see on the 8-9 line, in my opinion, if they are on that 8-9 line.
McNeely.
If you're the 1 seed, you want nothing to do with UConn in the second round. And boy, I mean, you love him or you hate him, Rick Pitino has done an unbelievable job at St. John's.
Yeah, I mean, look, for any younger college basketball fans, they think this is like, where'd this guy come from? But you know what? He has been there. He has done that. Kentucky, Providence, the Knicks, Louisville. He gets it done. He is selling out. And St. John's is shelling out to make sure that they can have a competitive team.
All right, last conference we want to talk about in this Power 5 is the ACC. Producers, they've been given a lot of praise. They put ACC last thinking they would have the fewest of this group. I'm going to change their minds, and I'm going to give the ACC a shocking 5 teams in the tournament this year. Right now, they could be 3. They could be as many as 6. Bubble teams like Carolina, Pitt, SMU, and Wake Forest are all question marks right now. These 3 are locked in, and they are very good. You don't want to see Duke, Clemson, or Louisville come tournament time.
Okay, so how's UNC getting
But I'm going Carolina and SMU in, and Wake and Pitt out. And I'll tell you what, frankly, you're not going to like to hear this, but big brands often get their way come selection Sunday.
Yeah, but this is
I
not
think
even
Carolina will. What Carolina has to do is they have to win out, except for maybe the Duke game. And then they need to get 1 or 2 wins at least in the ACC tournament. Got a big
They've
win
got
tonight.
one quad win all year.
I know, but they got a big win tonight in Tallahassee. If they win the next 2 before they play Duke, I don't think they even have to beat the Blue Devils to finish the regular season, and they still got a chance. And you don't want to see RJ Davis come tournament time, because he could put on some Carson Edwards type stuff and make a deep run for Carolina.
I get he made the tournament run a couple years ago, but Armando Bacot is not walking through that
I know,
door.
I'm not saying they're going to win games, Ian, in the tournament, but I think they're going to get in. I also think SMU, who Joe Lenardi from ESPN has out, is going to get in. Their net is inside the top 40. Usually you don't have teams inside the top 40 of the net missing out. That's where the projections, in my eyes, go wrong. I think Wake will lose 1 or 2. They just lost to NC State. They probably fall to Georgia Tech or Notre Dame down the stretch, and they miss out. And I've got SMU running the gauntlet here down the stretch, getting some big wins and getting into the tournament. Again, the ACC over the past few years has not gotten a lot of teams in, Ian.
No,
but boy,
they
have they produced.
Big brands do
Once
play.
they get in, they produce.
Big brands do play. I understand. Watch out for Clemson.
Yeah.
They're coming back this year. I think they're even better this year. But getting back to UNC, getting back to the ACC, I mean, the public perception around this conference is at an all-time low. If anything, I think you could see the Big East get an additional team in, because maybe they want to kind of right their wrongs from last year when the Big East got the short end of the stick.
This is where I think it won't go Big East. I think it's either going to go ACC or SEC, and it just depends on how much the committee is going to value wins versus quality wins and losses, right? ACC teams like Carolina, SMU will probably have more wins in the column, but they won't be as good as the wins of those teams like Oklahoma and Georgia in the SEC. It'll be interesting to watch. And we can't leave this block without talking about the job that Louisville has done in the comeback season.
The revival.
Unbelievable what
Pat
the Cardinals have done. Put the glasses on for Pat Kelsey. We're going to take a break. One last break on No Pulp. When we return, it's final words, it's plays of the week, and we finish up a 45-minute episode.
Here you go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Closing up shop on No Pulp, and we'll start with our plays of the week. Ian Nicholas alongside Andrew Selover. Now, college athletics is where we specialize, and we'll talk about anything. NCAA, NAIA, FBS, FCS, whatever. How about, I don't even know what you'd call this, student manager basketball. Michigan State. I'm sorry, it kind of looks like it's shot on a potato. We're not streaming these games.
Need the Pat Kelsey glasses, put that one in.
66-65, Michigan in Ann Arbor, with whatever that was, ends up beating Michigan State. We even got the headshot for the student manager. That's some inside baseball for you. I mean, this guy, Dusty May's got to call him up. Maybe get him on this Wolverines team and they can make a big push.
All right, so you go student manager basketball. I'm going to go to the start of softball season. We got number 4 UCLA, number 14 Duke, and check out the play from Amaya Rogers. 1 out to get in a 1-run game, and there is your out. That's unbelievable. She just laid out over the fence to take away an extra possible at bat from Jessica Clements. She snow cones it, she flips over the fencing, and she hangs on a 5-0 weekend at the Mary Nutter Collegiate Classic for Duke. And what a way to finish it. That is a top play if I've ever seen one.
Yeah, it's teleportation from me. I was gliding like that, outfielder or infielder. I don't even know where she was on the diamond. She was gliding as well. Now I got to get you to my my moment of the week. This is a crazy moment, and I will preface by saying the good news is that nobody was harmed. But after IU Indianapolis's men's basketball team lost on the road to Northern Kentucky, they came back, and you see these images, their bus caught on fire. Not only did the bus catch on fire, I mean, the bus was absolutely charred on the side of the road. Unfortunately, all the team gear is gone. Maybe a couple phones, a couple wallets as well. It's been a really tough season for the team. They just lost their 20th game, and they dropped to 5-13 in the Horizon League. But you know what? If you can't laugh in even the craziest of moments, I mean, you really don't have a good sense of humor. And I will say this. Tough weekend for IU Indianapolis, but it could always be worse. You could always be Doug Gottlieb in Green Bay, who still, even if their bus isn't burning down, is the worst team in the Horizon League.
Boy, that is a crazy stray, in my opinion, on Doug Gottlieb right there in Green Bay, who, last I checked, haven't won a game in a long time. For my final word, we're going to go to St. Bonaventure basketball. One of the cool off-season stories, Adrian Wojnarowski, ESPN's leading NBA insider, steps away from his 24/7 job, it felt like, where he was reporting on all the big deals inside the NBA, and instead he leaves to take a job with St. Bonnie's basketball as their general manager. GMs have become a big position over the last couple of years, trying to recruit NIL money and that sort of thing. And I'll tell you what, Woj, as of today, has a new way to get some more NIL money for the Bonnie's basketball team, who started the year great. 12-1 in non-conference, and now they've hit a slump. They're just 7-8 in the conference play, and so he decided they need to get some more NIL after this tough time, and he's going to turn to the cell phone to do so. Woj had all his phones running at all times when he was working at ESPN, and now he's going to auction them off. He's auctioning off some of the big phones that he used to break big NBA deals, and all of the money from those auctioned off items, such as iPhones and credentials and such, is going to go to fuel NIL money for St. Bonaventure basketball. Right now, the leading bid at $750 on the iPhone that Woj used to break the news that the NBA was suspending its season due to the COVID-19 pandemic. So we're expecting several $1,000s going to Allegheny, New York, and Bonnie's basketball because of the iPhone sales of Woj.
I'm pretty sure St. Bonaventure is an Olean, which, goes back to my point of, I don't care if you're paying me $1 million and you're giving me all the iPhones. I don't know if I'm going to go play for St. Bonaventure. I mean, Syracuse is already pretty feeble at times. But, man, wherever
St. John's is New York's team, isn't that right?
Yeah, I'd rather play at Madison Square Garden than wherever Woj is storing his phones. For Andrew Selover, Ian Nicholas, and our entire No Pulp crew, we're signing off for now. March Madness just around the corner.